There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes from being smarter than people around you assume. It is not loud. Nobody laughs at your ideas or tells you directly that you do not measure up. It is quieter than that. It is the moment you spot a problem before anyone names it, and instead of saying anything, you stay silent. Because the last time you said what you saw, people did not lean closer. They looked at you differently, not always with admiration, sometimes with distance. So somewhere along the way, you learned to make your mind easier to be around. You softened what you noticed. You waited before speaking. You pretended a pattern was not obvious, even when it was glowing right in front of you. And after enough years of doing that, something strange happened. You started believing the smaller version of yourself. Maybe you were just sensitive. Maybe you were overthinking. Maybe you were reading too much into things that meant nothing at all. But what if the things you keep dismissing are exactly the signs you have been looking for? What if intelligence does not always feel like confidence? What if it sometimes feels like hesitation, because your mind arrives at the truth before your voice feels safe enough to say it out loud? This is not about ego. It is about the psychology of a mind that learned to go quiet, not because it was empty, but because it got tired of being misunderstood. Here are the signs you may be more intelligent than you have ever believed. And the final sign may explain why your most capable part keeps hiding. Sign 1. You notice more than you say. You sense the shift in a room before the conversation actually changes. A pause lasts half a second too long. A smile arrives a beat late. A confident answer stands on a shaky foundation. Other people hear the words. You hear what is underneath them. But instead of naming everything you catch, you edit yourself. You let observations pass unspoken. You ask fewer questions than you actually have. You act surprised by things your mind already saw coming. From the outside, this can look like shyness or lack of confidence. But sometimes, it is neither. It is protection. Maybe you learned that noticing too much made people uncomfortable. Maybe your questions once sounded like accusations to people who were not ready to be questioned. So your intelligence stopped announcing itself. It became quieter, more private, and more careful about where it shows up. A quiet mind is not always an average mind. Sometimes, it is a mind that has learned to watch first and reveal itself only when it feels worth the risk. Some rooms ask you to be present on the outside while your mind is somewhere else entirely. Sign 2. You feel slightly outside, even when you belong. You can be sitting with people who are laughing and talking with total ease and still feel a few steps removed. No one is excluding you. No one is being cruel. You know how to participate well enough that nobody would guess how far away you actually feel. You smile at the right time. You answer when someone speaks to you. You seem present, but inside, it can feel like there is a thin pane of glass between you and the moment. That is what makes it confusing. You are not alone. You just do not feel entirely there. People may call this detachment or awkwardness, but often it shows up because your mind is processing more than the room is asking for. While everyone else is enjoying the conversation, part of you is tracking the pace, the tone, the silence after a joke, and the reason one person keeps steering the topic away. You are not trying to separate yourself. Your mind is taking in more layers than the moment requires. And when a simple scene becomes complicated inside your head, it becomes harder to feel simple inside it. Sign 3. Ordinary things cost you more energy than they seem to cost everyone else. A casual conversation leaves you needing silence afterward. A small gathering feels heavier than it should. An ordinary day of messages, decisions, and background noise can leave your mind crowded before the day is half over. Then you look around and see other people still going. They keep talking. They make more plans. They move from room to room like nothing has touched them. Quietly, you wonder if you are weaker. You are not. You may simply be paying the cost of depth. When your mind is constantly connecting meaning, tracking context, and sensing what is not being said out loud, simple situations can demand more from you than they appear to demand from everyone else. You are not tired because you are empty. You are tired because you are full of signals nobody asked you to collect, questions no one else seems to hear, details you did not mean to notice. This is why silence can feel like medicine, not because you dislike people, but because your mind needs a place where nothing is asking to be understood for a while. And when your mind processes this much, it does not only get tired faster, it also becomes restless around answers that do not actually answer the question. Some answers sound complete only because no one in the room wants to look closer. Sign 4. You cannot accept an answer that does not actually answer the question. Someone explains something in a way that sounds reasonable enough to everyone else. The room moves past it easily. People nod, the conversation continues, and the missing piece disappears under the sound of agreement. But something in you stays behind with what was left out. You can feel the weak assumption holding the answer up, the skipped detail, the conclusion that arrived too fast to be earned. You are not trying to make things difficult. You are trying to find what is actually true. But to other people, your questions can feel like pressure. They may hear challenge where you meant curiosity, resistance where you meant accuracy. So, eventually you learn to hold back. You let the simple answer pass, while your mind keeps quietly reaching for the real one. This can make you doubt yourself. Maybe you are too analytical. Maybe you should just let things go like everyone else does. But intelligence often begins exactly where easy answers stop working. A mind like yours does not only want information, it wants structure, evidence, and honesty. It wants the answer underneath the answer. And a mind like that rarely feels brilliant from the inside. Most days, it just feels like an unresolved question that refuses to leave you alone. Sign 5. You feel guilty for seeing what other people miss. This one does not feel powerful. It feels heavy. You notice when someone says they are fine, but their face carries a tiredness their words are trying to cover. You notice when confidence is standing in for insecurity. You notice when kindness has a hidden edge. You notice when someone changes the subject, the moment a conversation gets too close to something real. And strangely, you do not always feel proud of catching it. You feel guilty, as if your awareness walked into a room it was not invited into. The burden is not only that you notice the truth, the burden is that you know the truth may not be yours to expose. If you only judge people for what you saw, you would feel superior. Instead, you feel the weight of knowing more than someone chose to share. That is the difference between cold observation and something closer to empathy. If one of these first signs is putting words to something you have never fully explained, comment the number that feels closest to you so far. I want to know which one made you pause. But intelligence does not only show up in what you notice or question. Sometimes, it reveals itself in a harder place. The places where life refuses to give you one clean answer. Sign 6. You can hold opposing truths without needing one of them to vanish. This is one of the most misread signs of intelligence, because from the outside it can look like indecision. People may think you are stalling, avoiding a side, or taking too long to land on an answer. Someone hurts you, and part of you understands exactly where their behavior came from. The fear underneath it, the old wound they might still be reacting from, the context that explains why they acted the way they did. But understanding them does not erase the damage. So you hold both truths at once. They may have a reason, and they are still responsible. You can listen to an argument you mostly agree with and still spot its weakest point. You can hear someone you disagree with and still recognize the one honest sentence buried in what they are saying. People who want quick certainty get impatient with this. They want you to pick a side cleanly. But your mind does not move comfortably inside a frame that small. You are not complicating things for the sake of it. You are refusing to lie to yourself just to make the conclusion feel easier. That is not indecision. That is the mind declining to trade truth for comfort. Until now, these signs have been about what your mind notices in the world. But the next one is harder, because it is about what your mind does to itself. Sign 7. You second-guess yourself in front of people who never earn the right to shake your confidence. There is a specific kind of person who can say one dismissive sentence and suddenly you are replaying an entire decision you were sure about 5 minutes earlier. Sometimes it is a stranger's comment, a raised eyebrow, a tone that suggests you have overstepped. And just like that, the certainty you walked in with quietly folds. This is not the same as being easily influenced. If anything, it is the opposite problem. Because you can see so many angles of a situation, you can also see the angle where you might be wrong. And that makes you generous with other people's doubt, even when it is not backed by anything real. You give their skepticism more weight than your own evidence, because you are capable of imagining how you could be mistaken. People who move through the world with less awareness rarely do this. They do not see as many angles, so they do not have as many doors for doubt to enter. Their confidence is not always stronger than yours. Sometimes, it is just less informed. Yours has to survive contact with everything you notice, including your own possible errors. That is harder to hold on to. And it is not a flaw. It is the tax that comes with thinking clearly. And when doubt becomes that familiar, it can start protecting you from the very future you want. Sign 8. You are afraid of your own potential. This is the hardest one to admit, because it rarely announces itself as fear. It shows up dressed as timing, humility, or being realistic. You tell yourself the idea needs more work. Life needs to be calmer first. You need more confidence before you let anyone see what you can do. But underneath those explanations, you already know something else is true. You have seen glimpses of what you can become. A project that came alive when you gave it your full attention. A conversation where your words landed clearer than you expected. A moment when someone saw something in your work before you were ready to believe it yourself. And almost immediately afterward, you pulled back. Not because you stopped caring, because using your ability fully would make the hidden part of you visible. And visibility has a cost. Try casually, and you are protected by distance. Try fully, and people can see it, judge it, or misunderstand something that genuinely matters to you. So you stay close to your potential without stepping all the way inside it. You keep it as a possibility instead of letting it become a real life. People might call this laziness or fear of failure, but sometimes what you are actually afraid of is not failing. It is finding out what happens the moment you stop hiding from your own capacity. Put together, this is a pattern. Noticing more than you say, feeling slightly outside rooms you belong in, getting tired from things that look easy for everyone else, refusing answers that do not hold up, carrying guilt for what you perceive, holding two truths at once, letting people shake confidence they never earned, and quietly avoiding what you may be most capable of. Underneath all of it may be a mind that has been waiting for permission to trust itself. You do not need to become arrogant to admit you are intelligent. You only need to stop shrinking every sign your mind has already been showing you. None of this means you are better than anyone else. Intelligence like this does not come with a trophy. Most of the time, it comes with more to carry. But there is a difference between carrying something because you are broken and carrying it because your mind was built to hold more than the room asks for. One story keeps you small. The other finally explains why you have felt different for so long. If something in this video described a part of you that you have carried quietly, comment which sign felt the most familiar. And remember this, you do not need to become louder to prove your mind is real. You only need to stop shrinking the signs it has been showing you. Subscribe to Awaken Psychology for more videos about mental strength, hidden psychology, self-awareness, and the parts of your mind that are waiting to be awakened.